Welcome to Amazon Legends, where we have real stories about making it big on Amazon. Our guests are CEOs of large companies and entrepreneurs who became power sellers, also providers specializing in helping sellers, aggregators that acquire sellers, and former Amazonians will give us an insight from behind the scenes. Here is your host, Nick Urison.
Welcome to another episode of Amazon Legends. And my next guest today has been on the show before, and we've known each other quite a bit of time. And he's a serial entrepreneur. He built and sold several companies such as Cubana, Prosper Show, that everybody knows and attends in the Amazon community, and an Amazon seller called Crucial. So today he is the founder and CEO of Prophecy, an AI-based dynamic repricing engine for private label sellers. When not working, he works on personal growth and his son, and also he DJs when he's free. So with that, everybody, meet my guest, Chad Rubin. Welcome back to the show, Chad.
What's up, Nick? Thanks for having me.
Are you still DJing?
I am, not as frequently as I was during the time of my sale of Cubana and sort of when I started exploring other personal things. I would say I'm trying to just focus on family, reading, and working out, along with growing this new business, Prophecy.
Cool. So we want to hear all about Prophecy, but you are very well connected in the Amazon community, and having been part of building Prosper Show, and now everybody attends. So we're going to talk about today things that that probably not too many people are aware of yet, and your take on certain new developments and new trends. And then also, you mentioned just before we started recording some mistakes that sellers are making that they want to avoid. So we're going to talk about a diverse number of issues. So with that, let's jump right in. So where do you want to start? So let's start with the mistakes. I like the mistakes part.
Yeah, I think a lot of Amazon sellers spend a lot of time in what I call the Amazon matrix, right? So they're working on things that Amazon guides you towards, but they don't think out of the box, because essentially the gurus and all the other people in the space are guiding you towards things that actually effectively help Amazon at the end of the day. So for example, let's use an example, right? Advertising spend. Now we know that advertising is very important to Amazon, but how the Amazon flywheel works specifically is they have a flywheel around their agencies and around their softwares, all pushing ad spend, which drives more profitability for Amazon specifically. So there's a lot of nuances around PPC, but I guess the most important thing is most people adjust spend, but they don't adjust price, because Amazon historically has said, hey, it's not beneficial to adjust, or there's been folklore, let's just say, not even Amazon, folklore, that if you adjust price, you'll get penalized. And that's just factually not correct. So again, most people are focusing on spend, but they're not focusing on the other part of the ACOS equation, which is revenue, which equals your units times your average selling price. And that's where I spend a lot of time. And then harmonizing the two together is next level, and has a second level order of consequence that's positive for a business if you can actually do both simultaneously.
So when you say they are focusing on spend, but not revenue, isn't that ACOS providing for you? Or are you talking about the dollar value of the revenue rather than the ratio?
So, I mean, I think you have to focus on the ratio, but even just focusing on changing your pricing is something that nobody is doing. And adjusting your price based on market seasonality, based on what your competition does, based on what happens to your BSR, right? To be able to maximize the profit arbitrage that's available to you on the marketplace. Nobody is doing this right now. And I guess, Mick, why don't I ask you the question, would you ever just take $10,000 of PPC spend and let it just run a campaign and never touch it, never optimize it?
Well, of course not.
No. So why would you do that with price, if price is the single largest lever that you can pull that all drops to the bottom line?
So, okay, there's a few things there. Price is primarily determined by the competition, right? And also the value that you built for your brand. So you look at the competition, and unless you are Starbucks, you're not going to sell your new coffee brand,
Yeah.
at the Starbucks price. So
So let me correct you on that, because I've been like studying price for a long time. Is that people think that just marking your price to competition to whatever the market price is, or maybe slightly under, is the right decision, but it's actually not always the optimal decision. So you're essentially copying a competitor that then copied another competitor that probably went broke over the course of the past couple of years.
right.
And so that's where there's nuance around in price, because you could actually be either overpriced or you could be underpriced. And price on Amazon specifically, the reason why it's so hard is that your price has a knock-on effect, right? Your price affects your order volume tomorrow. Your price today affects your order volume, your discoverability tomorrow. And so there actually is a whole lot of nuance that's wrapped around price where nobody actually knows what the optimal price is. They're just making it up. They're kind of doing a little bit of this with their finger to test it out and figure it out.
Yeah.
So in order to actually figure out what your right price is, you have to actually start experimenting. You have to deeply understand the nuances. If I actually make an increase to price, what happens to my rank? Am I changing price because I want to maximize my profit, or am I changing price because I want to maximize my BSR or my organic discoverability?
And are you talking about the kind of fluctuations that are small increments, or are you talking about larger fluctuations?
Yeah, you actually just need to make small changes, adjust your pricing in small increments to actually maximize the objective. You don't need to make a massive 30% swing to make a difference. And you don't need, that's actually not the optimal decision either. So there's this Harvard Business Review study that talked about that a 1% increase in price could generate a 14% increase in operating profit, because it all flows down to the bottom line. But again, nobody is making changes. I'm not saying that's the optimal decision, because there's this knock-on effect. Sometimes you want a lower price increases your unit velocity, and that offsets the lower price, thus thereby increasing your contribution profit on Amazon. And now, by the way, by lowering price, you also have an opportunity to increase your ranking position on Amazon.
And of course, as your rank increases, I'm sure that has an impact on the kind of price changes you can make, right?
Correct. And if you look at, I actually did a really deep study on Zule, which is the #1 garlic press, and I observed how they're changing pricing to essentially stay effectively in the #1 rank. So like, price is a lever to pull when you want to maximize the objective. It's not just spend. People think, oh, just spend, spend, spend. That's the objective, to maximize rank or sell through, but it's not actually, that's actually not the case. Now, if you actually do the two together, if you combine and harmonize price and spend together, there's a massive, massive unlock, right? A non-linear unlock that happens when you do that, but that's like next level. And I don't know if you want to go there just yet.
Yeah. Well, there is another benefit to changing the price. So as you know, a lot of people add to their cart, but they don't check out. So in fact, because of that, Amazon has that brand tailored campaigns that where you can hit people with a coupon code if they have stuff in their carts, and this can be up to 90 days. So when you make a price change, you actually see a notification that says that the price on your item in your cart has changed. So that's like an icing on the cake, I guess, right? So
Totally. And I leave stuff in my cart all the time. I get notified by Amazon if the price increases or decreases. I mean, Amazon's changing pricing a million times a day, but private label brands never do it, because they've been trained, and it's a systematic training and socialization that's been institutionalized in this ecosystem. Don't change price. And that's just false.
So what do you say about the brand, the perception of the brand? Like, for example, if you want to buy iPhone, the price is the same wherever you go. So you don't really see Apple changing the price of their iPhone or Apple Watch or whatever, depending on what's going on. What do you say to that perception aspect of it?
Yeah, I think that a couple of things. Every brand thinks that they're Apple, and they're not, right? Apple is a premium brand that essentially, you're talking about private label brands versus Apple. You can't even compare the two. It's apples and oranges. Get the pun? So they're not. Private label brands are not, right? And you have to take ego out of the equation. You have to think about what is the most optimal decision. When people are going to Amazon, they're aware that it's a marketplace. They're going to Amazon, they understand that the price changes over time. And so there's a lot of opportunity to capitalize on mispricing, and billions of dollars are being left on the table on Amazon, and that's really why Prophecy exists.
Yeah.
To capture that, right? To capture that differential.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how I feel about this. Yeah, of course, everybody, when first of all, I heard this saying a long time ago, you can never be a successful politician and not be a narcissist, because only a narcissist can actually endure that beating of, who you are and then blah, blah. So entrepreneurs are the same. Entrepreneurs have a vision, right? So you pursue a vision, and you have a certain level of pride about your vision and your knowledge and everything else. Understanding that not everybody is Apple, but how do you feel about being perceived as, oh, this little brand, they keep changing their price and they're trying to game the system and they're trying to get, I mean they're not going to mistake you for Apple, but at the same time, the kind of perception that you may build, what do you think about that?
Well, first of all, I love the fact that you're straw manning pricing. It's interesting, and I think that brands or consumers aren't aware of what's happening in the market. It's not like they go buy something, they check back 10 seconds later to see what happens to price. And we're not making a ton of price change. We just do one price change a day right now, sometimes two. For example, if there's a storm coming, we have the largest umbrella company on Amazon, and as they're starting to see demand pick up, we're changing pricing to capitalize on that demand. And that's really what happens when a storm happens. And that's algorithmic computational thinking. And I understand what you're saying around perception from customers, but people just aren't aware of what's happening. And we're capitalizing on that lack of awareness. And we're doing it based on demand, based on conversion rate. We're also actually considering your competition. So when you make a price change, you have to understand how your competition reacts to those price changes. And so we're pulling your competition for a specific keyword into our model. 10 different competitors come into the model. And so we're actually baking that in when we're making our changes to price.
Okay. All right. So, I mean, I wanna scrutinize this so that anybody listening to this, so they will have different viewpoints, right? We wanna demonstrate different angles of it and how it's taken.
Yeah.
And,
Of course, I don't
I
mind at all. I don't mind at all. Like this, I do
Yeah.
this all the time.
Yeah. So I have seen several times that, for example, something I buy for pressing, there is those the stuff that gets the wrinkles out. I forget the name now. So the price changes on those. So now I look at it and it's pennies. So I don't really form an opinion about, oh, this is that they're trying to game. So it does happen. And frankly, whenever I make the purchase, I don't really remember the price.
Sure.
Of course, you have your order history. If it's you're buying it again and it's a repurchase, you can compare to your previous. But the other thing is, price goes up all the time, and especially now as we record this in 2024 March, there's inflation, so prices are going up. So it's something that definitely people can capitalize on. But
by the way, the price doesn't always go up with Prophecy. Sometimes the optimal decision is that the price goes down, like I mentioned. So it's the brand comes to us and they say, hey, here's our min price, here's our match price, here's our landed cost. This is our objective. Our objective is to maximize BSR or maximize revenue or maximize profit. Based on those inputs, we have some other additional what I call power ups that you can use, like what's your risk tolerance behavior? How do you want your variations to synchronize with the parent SKU specifically? Do you want them to be asynchronous or synchronous? Do you have a 1-pack, a 2-pack, or 4-pack, or bundle? Do you have digital bundles available? Those are all things that are considered when you're actually coming on the platform. And then our pricing works over time, just like Uber, right? Uber surge pricing, right? Wendy's just launched surge pricing as well. And so this is an idea of the future, and most people just aren't aware of it just yet. But my vision for the future, Nick, is that brands are going to have to become algorithmic brands to survive. Amazon is going to become just like Wall Street. It's no different, where bots are taking over, and pricing is one of those things that's going to happen, whether I do it or whether somebody else does it. And so that's why we're capitalizing on the opportunity. I'm happy to go into detail about Wall Street, but if you look at the 90s, in the early 90s, Wall Street was people holding up pieces of paper and being like, I want to buy this stock, I want to sell this stock. And now it's 80, I think it's like 80 or 90% of Wall Street is just bots making trades, capitalizing on that price arbitrage opportunity that exists. And Amazon is no different. Amazon's a commodity marketplace where computers will be humans all the time, right? And that is where we can execute trades in real time with no oversight from humans. And I mean, at Prophecy, we have a data science team that's overseeing everything. This is currently giving the brands that we're managing a level up, right? They're essentially have a competitive advantage that others can't actually succeed on because of this. And we're seeing a 10 to 50% lift in profit just by changing pricing alone.
Yeah, because you're dealing directly with the top line, right? So when you have that a dollar coming as a revenue, that's the full size of the pie, everything gets taken piece by piece, and then you're left with whatever you're left with. So you are actually increasing the size of the pie, so by changing the price. So that's a big deal. So Chad, share with us, for someone who's listening to this and they want to do this, what are the considerations that they need to take into account?
Yeah, so first of all, like I highly recommend, even if you don't use Prophecy, to start adjusting price to understand how price movements can impact the objective you're trying to achieve. So when I first started doing this, it came out of my own need of my own e-commerce business. So I have an e-commerce business today. We made vacuum filters, coffee filters, air filters. This is how we started Stubana. I needed something, there was nothing on the market, and I solved my own need. It's called dog fooding. And so how I started, just like anyone else can start, is essentially create a spreadsheet with with one specific ASIN, commit to an objective. I want to maximize profit. Now start putting every input that you think about into that equation, right? Maybe you think about your price, you think about the fees from Amazon, you think about your ad spend, you think about your landed cost, you think about your competition's price, your BSR relative to your competitor's price. Put this all in the spreadsheet and start seeing how changes to price impact what you're trying to achieve. And this is exactly what we do at Prophecy, which is essentially the same thing, but we do it automated, right? And we do it algorithmically. So you can look at an algorithm as a giant decision tree where it self-evolves and self-learns over time, right? And makes these decisions, learns from those decisions, and actually fails fast, but actually learns really fast, faster than a human being. And so what we do is we collect the landed cost, we collect advertising spend, we collect your competition. It all flows into the model, and the model learns from this, understands the patterns, and then makes decisions based on those patterns to help you maximize the objective. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So as far as the model, how do you, in other words, what is the outcome? Is the outcome, first of all, I guess, increase or decrease the price? So that would be one. And then how much, right?
Yeah. So first of all, you give us your risk tolerance. You also give us your min-max price. So in the first 30 days, Prophecy does something called the hyper learning phase. In this hyper learning phase, because most brands never change price. And if you never change price, it's like if you went on Instagram or Facebook. If you never like anything, you never watch a video, if you never, poke somebody, the algorithm won't know what to serve you. It won't know how to hit that dopamine. And their dopamine objective is to make sure that you keep scrolling, right? In that same way, Prophecy doesn't know what the right price is if you've never made a change to price. So in the first 30 days, we do something called hyper learning. This is where we train the model. We see how Amazon.com reacts to your price changes. We see how your competitors react to price changes, and we see how your customers react to those price changes. And then we essentially deploy those learnings to the market in what we call the optimization phase. And that's what we do. And as we're deploying those learnings, it's also continuously learning and gets better over time. It's pretty amazing. And then now we've added PPC specifically because price dictates your ad spend. There's a lot of fun things you can do when you actually harmonize price and ad spend together. So we built a model that says, hey, at this price, this is what the optimal spend should be at a specific price. Go now and optimize your high performing keywords in a specific campaign based on where the price is going.
And as far as some of the, as you know, Amazon also is tracking your price. So if you reduce your price and sell at that price, after a while, they won't let you win the buy box if you increase it back up. So do you ever run into situations like
Yeah,
that?
of course. It's Amazon suppression. So a few things is like you have to test to find out what the actual threshold is around where Amazon suppresses it. And that goes into the risk tolerance. You can pick your risk tolerance in our platform. You can say, I want to be risk loving. I want to be risk neutral. But as you start testing your price, the more Amazon takes a trailing average of what your price has been historically. So let's just say you want to test, we start testing pricing up, for example, that new price, the recency of that price is all part of the average that Amazon's calculating when they're looking at suppression.
Mhm.
Again, it's all
So
about the model is observing, it's experimenting, and it's learning, all independent of us. And that is the sweet spot of where we can yield more money for sellers, where we're finding that there's mispricing happening on the marketplace in a high percentage.
mhm. Okay, so at the end of the day, it's your rolling average that dictates whether or not Amazon will suppress your listing or not. Well, not listing, but take away the buy box. And
Sure. And that goes into just understanding where Amazon sees that upper threshold. They look to see, did someone buy recently at a higher price? And that's also taken into account when they're doing the average. And the simplest way to put this, and I don't know if you're gonna get the reference, but I'm a big hip hop fan, and I like Jay-Z. And so Jay-Z has this quote, which is real recognizes real, right? Where essentially someone that's a real human that wants to connect with others, they know that they can see the authenticity in you, and you can see the authenticity in me. And the same thing when it comes to algorithms, right? The only way to understand Amazon's algorithm is with another algorithm. And our algorithm has been trained around Amazon's algorithm. It's incredibly complex, but incredibly intelligent. And yeah, I'm happy
yeah,
to keep going together with you on this.
yeah, and when you say Amazon's algorithm, which one are you talking about? About the BSR or the buy box?
All of it, right? The BSR, it's all intertwined, right? That's the algorithm. Amazon's algorithm isn't just looking at one signal, one factor. It's not
Yeah,
yes or no. It's hey, what was the recency of price? Did someone buy at that price? If someone typed in this keyword, what's the UID that's associated with that keyword that someone bought on that specific keyword? Like there's so much that's going into Amazon's algorithm, and the same thing for us is that there's so much going into our algorithm.
yeah. Okay. I mean, I was thinking because everybody talks about the A9 algorithm, which is primarily for search. How does Amazon, and then they have their algorithm for who gets to be in the buy box and whether or not. That's what I was trying to identify which one. Okay.
So
All
let's
right.
just say, Nick, let's just use another example, right? So let's just say you are determining what to wear for the day, right? So let's think about the inputs. I'm in Florida right now. So you're going to think about, okay, like what's the temperature in Florida? Is there a chance of rain today? Um, is it windy outside? Am I going far? Am I going to be walking or am I going to be running or am I going to be in my car? Uh, is there cloud coverage outside? So you're taking all of these inputs and you're creating output based on the inputs. So based on those inputs, you might say, okay, I'm going to wear my Patagonia shorts. I'm going to wear sweat wicking underwear on top of it. I'm going to just wear a very, very light tee. I'm only going 2 blocks. So that is what I'm going to pluck out of my closet based on those inputs. And it's the same thing with algorithms, right? We're taking all of those inputs and creating output based on those inputs.
Mhm. Okay. And does this apply to products of any price, like low price, mid price, or high price, high ticket items, or Doesn't matter.
It doesn't, that's a great question. It doesn't matter. So if, let's just say we have sellers that are really low price and Amazon has this $9.99 threshold where if you go over there, or if you're over it, right, you're sort of given a higher fee, but if you're under it, there's a small and light fee, especially that happens. And so we figure out what is the sweet spot based on the fees of Amazon. So to answer your question precisely, it's whether you're a low price or you're a medium price or you're a high price, we can train our model around whatever your price is based on all the other inputs.
Yeah. So I guess if you are low price, this is even more important because you want to increase your price, right?
Yeah, I mean, it just depends on the zigs and zags of the market. And
Yeah. And do you ever have a situation like, for example, as you know, as you increase your sales velocity, your BSR goes up. So generally, BSR is driven by your sell-through rate. So do you ever have a situation where the BSR gets better and then you increase the price, and then it keeps pushing the other up and up and up, and then suddenly you price yourself out of the market? Do you ever have that situation?
no, because like our profit model, for example, profit was the first objective that we set out to achieve. And that was because of my own business. I have 500 private label SKUs. The idea is, and we never worked on price. We never changed price. So I was like, okay, well, there's an opportunity there. What if we can change price, but not sacrifice our ranking position on Amazon? We won't hurt our BSR. And so our model will try to maximize profit without hurting the BSR or your ranking position. And
Okay.
so it'll start testing different levels to figure out what is the optimal price without affecting your rank.
Yeah, because that's something a long time ago when I was a seller, I was not selling my own products. I was competing on the buy box with other resellers, and those incremental changes would make a huge impact in winning the buy box. And at the same time, sometimes we would be the only seller. Then, of course, it's up to us what to price. And there I had to make certain it's not because there's nobody to compare to, so you're just plugging in a price. So do you ever have those situations where, okay, if it ever goes beyond this, then don't exceed this kind of situation?
Well, so we have the floor price and the ceiling price already baked in, right? So we have these like guidelines from the seller. Now, sometimes our data science team will say, hey, by the way, your min price and your max price are too strict. And it's preventing our model from maximizing the opportunity here, right? And so then we'll ask the person if they can adjust, if they're willing to adjust the min price and the max price.
Okay, so there's that protection, bottom line.
There's a
You
whole lot of
also,
protection. I mean, even if you're, let's just say you get suppressed, your buy box suppressed, our system immediately picks up on it and resets back to the original price. But it's learning what that threshold is now, so now you know what that threshold is.
yeah. Okay, so for anybody listening who's looking to do this themselves, first of all, lesson number one is don't just keep your price the same, play with your price, and then keep tracking your BSR, and then make incremental changes, and then make sure you set your minimums and maximums so that you know you're not going to look, because minimum is another one, right? So you can't be selling less than X because otherwise you'll be out of pocket. So set your minimums and maximums so that way you know you don't exceed something that's going to hurt you, and equally you don't go below without sacrificing profit. Well, that's great. I mean, this is a no-brainer because you're increasing the size of the pie. You know, if $1 is coming in now, it's $1.05, and it may sound too little, but that's 5%, right?
Right now, we're seeing a 10 to 15% lift in profit for gross profit for brands that we're working with. 10 to 15%. Now, that is massive for an e-commerce brand, especially those that are suffering and getting squeezed right now with the new fees. So I'm super happy with those that are implementing this objective around profit in prophecy to change pricing. And again, you can try to do this yourself. I'm not just here pitching if it's prophecy, even though I think that we have the best mousetrap on the market. You can try to, if you have one SKU, right, you can do this yourself and you can actually figure out what's the optimal decision for your product.
I have a question for my listeners. Are you experiencing cash flow challenges with your Amazon business? Well, silly question. Who is not, right? So let me introduce you to Viably, a unique solution tailored for Amazon sellers and e-commerce enterprises. By connecting your Seller Central or Shopify account, you can promptly access funding along with a variety of financial tools, all for a flat fee. It's as simple as that. And for my listeners, they are offering an extra $1,500 in funding for eligible applications. Start your quick and easy application today at runviably.com/legends. And that's runviably.com/legends. So something you said is a good segue to something I want to bring up next, is the fees. So as we record this March 24, Amazon has now new fees for inbound traffic. So give us your take on that, because there are a lot of misconceptions, some concerns. So give us your take on that.
So look, there's a lot of people complaining about the fees, and that's just the problem of selling on Amazon. People are always complaining about something, but when you realize that Amazon considers sellers as if they're playing musical chairs, right? Amazon holds the deck and the seller is just a card in the deck, so to speak. So that is where I begin and think about Amazon's in control. Amazon's the platform. Amazon has never historically cared in my 20 years of selling on Amazon about the seller, right? You get suspended overnight like this and poof, your business is gone. And that's happened to me on numerous occasions. And so like Amazon's fees are just going up, right? Like advertising used to be a choice and now it's not. It's like it's pay to play. You're forced to advertise on Amazon because organic results are now just buried under the sponsored results. Then you have FBA, right? Started off as optional. Now it's mandatory. And so that's the reality of the situation, is that Amazon is constantly and consistently finding ways to make more money from you because they need to maximize shareholder value. The rules are always changing. So you have to change with the rules, right? And so you have to be a strong operator. You have to have strong margins and have all your basics done to maximize the opportunity that's available to you on the Amazon marketplace. Mm-hmm. That's my perspective, right? And I think that you have to start getting creative around, if you look at let's just take aggregators as an example. There are aggregators that are doing really well. And those aggregators are doing things differently than these small, tiny brands that are selling on Amazon. And that is essentially they have a data science team and they're letting data drive all of their decisions. And that is what I believe is the future around this algorithmic brand that we're going to start seeing on Amazon, where it's not going to be run by a human, it's run by algorithms making the optimal decision for that business, whether it's PPC, whether it's inventory, whether it's price. I don't know. I see some yeah, you see that in the background. Whether it's any of those things, that is what the algorithm is going to be very good at.
By the way, that was algorithm.
Exactly. I think it's actually based on my hand expressions. Yeah. It can do different things. Like if I do a heart here, let's see here, a heart.
So for those listening, we're playing with the Zoom gestures, and it's picking up gestures. So your take on the new fees, inbound fees, is tough luck. Get used to it. Amazon will always try to get more money out of sellers. So that's your position.
Yeah, that's my position. I mean, I think you have to just get smarter. You have to play smarter, whether that means operating smarter, whether that means, really, doing hard things like changing price, better predicting your inventory levels, being just in time with your inventory from China. There's a lot of things that you can do to expand your margin profile, but you have to be willing to do it, right? And that's part of people listening to your podcast. They're trying to get nuggets of information so they can actually one-up the next person because competition is getting tougher. Amazon is getting tougher, and there's more cost to sell on the marketplace. So I think that's it. I think, am I in favor of Amazon reducing fees? Yeah, absolutely. but over time, we haven't seen that historically on the Amazon marketplace.
But what about this perspective that some people have? And also, especially if you speak to Amazonians, like I had the founder of PackView, Melissa, on the show, and she was at Amazon 10 years. She's very passionate about Amazon, how Amazon operates. And their position is they want to democratize the commerce in terms of giving little guys the voice to do something that of their own, rather than have the big boys getting bigger and bigger. But when you apply this, the Amazon doesn't care philosophy, there are conflicts. Now, I've been a seller, I've been thrown out many times, came back many times. I know this. This is a fact. However, when you speak to Amazon people, they say, we want to do this, we want to do that. Like, for example, they offer FBA. I remember, actually, this is now going back 15 years plus. It's my algorithm speaking up, kicking it. Too much interference with algorithms.
Tell Siri to stop listening.
Yeah. So about at least 15 years ago, I remember, probably more, remember this Business Week article where one of the Amazon VPs gave an interview and said that they are working to get third-party sellers to offer the same kind of delivery service, 2-day delivery, to consumers. So, and I was a seller, and I know I was paying even then $5 plus per package, minimum priority package. And I laughed. I thought, how is a small seller going to be able to afford 2-day free service, right? Well, guess what? They introduced FBA for third-party sellers, and the rest is history. So now third-party seller can use FBA, and the consumer at the end of the day gets to buy from the little guy and still receive it. So in other words, if you speak to Amazon people, their position is, we care about the small sellers, and we want to be fair, and we want to give them the opportunity to be big. But that conflicts with, Amazon doesn't care idea.
I just want to share, like, you can say the same thing about politics, right? You can say the same thing about our president and the campaigns that they run, where they care about everybody and they care about the lower class. But when you see the actions, right, the actions speak differently than what they say, specifically on the campaign trail. And so even on Amazon, anyone you hear that speaks at Amazon has to pass whatever they're saying to upper management. Everything is scripted. And that is whether you're at Amazon, and that's whether you're in politics.
Yeah. Well, you're right. At the end of the day, actions speak louder than the words. And if you look back, and I always say this, I make a similar argument with UPS and FedEx. So I advocate this, and I quote them red-handed many times. UPS and FedEx systematically overcharge their customers. And the reason why is because they're not able to figure it out, and they end up paying. So, and they came to me and they said, oh, we don't do that. And I said, listen, I have a question for you. We've had financial meltdowns, we've had recessions and everything else year after year. Many businesses get wiped out. A lot of small businesses go out of business. I've never seen UPS or FedEx stock suffer. You guys are always making money. How? So don't tell me that you look out for me. So you're making the same argument because they've got built-in systems that little guy cannot possibly figure out. And also they get very heavy-handed, like Amazon throws you out. And UPS says, okay, we're stopping your shipments. So there's all this kind of heavy-handedness going on that, is true at the end of the day. And also, in all fairness, it's a level playing field for every small business, right? Some survive, some don't. So
yeah, and you can take it a step further, right? Like, so I'm seeing backlash, I'm seeing sellers. The first thing is acknowledging that you as a seller are replaceable, right? just like an Uber driver is, you're a gig worker in this economy, and you take on risk, and you operate within the confines that Amazon gives you, or Uber, for example. Now let's play it forward. So a big seller, I know many of them are saying, hey, I'm going to go to Temu. I'm going to Shein. I'm leaving Amazon. I'm going to expand. I'm going to go to Shopify. That's great. But there's always going to be somebody else that's willing to actually sell in your place on Amazon, that's willing to take on that risk, that's willing to actually do the work and take less margin for what they're providing.
Yeah. And that is the race to the bottom when it comes to price, right? So some people, and also a lot of them don't even know that that's actually what's happening.
Yeah, but again, some people, you can have a better listing, you can have a premium product with better reviews, and you can command a higher price. And if you look at if you search anything on Amazon, like any generic keyword, let's just say it's garlic press, the disparity between the prices across the top 5 or the top 10 listings is massive. You might have a garlic press for $7.99, and you may have one for $27.99. And so you have the choice to actually decide what is the optimal price to maximize your conversion rate and the outcome you want to achieve. So it's not that everyone's just going lower and lower and lower on garlic press. That's not really it, at least
Right.
based on what I've seen on, especially if you look at Zule and the analysis that I did, I posted on LinkedIn and Twitter. You have a choice. You don't always have to be the lowest price to win on Amazon.
Yeah. And, I always advocate. So whenever I take on a client, I'm always talking to them about, okay, what's your price? That's the first thing we do. And we look at the costs. And I've got a template that kind of lights up in different colors based on where they rank in terms of profitability. And in the end, I say, okay, because everybody comes to the table with the idea to sell X. That's a single piece. I say, maybe it's not a good idea to sell this as a single piece. Maybe you should create packs. So in other words, my point is always don't focus on the price and then get into price competition. Build value so that way you can assign any price to that value. So if you do that, like if you create bundles and packs and things like that, where it is now harder to compare your offering with an immediate direct competition, now you have a lot more flexibility to change your price depending on the demand, right? Because they're not going to be able to compare directly. Say, oh, this one is $29.95, but this one is $63.45. Okay, but it also comes with this and this and this. So that extra $1 or $2, people don't care about. But that translates into extra 10 to 15% as you put in gross profit.
Yeah, it's pricing power.
Yeah. So I would say price combined with that value that you're building into your offering, then you have a lot more flexibility on your price fluctuations that you can apply, because it's not a direct comparison. It's not like you're buying this iPhone here for this much and this iPhone. No, this one comes with the iPhone and the case and this, that, the extra, whatever. And then you're not going to worry about the price that much because there is a lot.
Yeah.
And then, therefore, they can really play with their price freely. Yeah, I mean, look, I'm going to say it the third time. You're increasing the size of the pie. That's the easiest thing to do.
Now, just to take it one step further, just to finish, is this idea around spend and price harmonized together. You can increase your price 20%, and you can increase your ACOS, which is counterintuitive. Most people want to just have the lowest ACOS possible, but you can increase your ACOS, let's just say from 20% to 24%, which is a 20% increase. And then suddenly you can double your contribution profit by making those choices.
Yeah. This is another thing, Chad. I don't know if you ever, this is not directly what your system is for, but I bring this up quite a bit. So people are extremely sensitive about their top line or top of their P&L, how much they are making and how much they are profiting, gross profit, but they don't really understand the bottom of the P&L, all the different line items. And as you know, there are so many of them with Amazon fees, since they are always adding more fees, whether it's the return fee, refund fee, and this fee, that fee, now these inbound fees. So your contribution margin shrinks. So what is your take on what a seller should be watching, because everybody watches their ACOS, but ACOS does not give you that contribution margin, which is the net profit that they're making from Amazon.
Yeah. So a couple of things. One is you have to have the ability to harmonize price and your spend together. Everyone knows that if you increase price, typically demand goes down. And if you lower price, demand goes up. And so you can artificially pump ad dollars into that to actually offset that lower demand that incurs, where you can actually sell at a higher price. That's like what we do at Prophecy specifically. Now, when it comes to managing your ad campaign specifically, most sellers are using ACOS or ROAS. And because most agencies and most softwares don't actually include your cost of goods sold, your landed cost into the equation. So they're using these like revenue embedded metrics that aren't inherently tied to the performance of the account. So what I suggest and what we use at my e-commerce business is what at Prophecy, how we're running things, something called POAS, which is your profit on ad spend. And your profit on ad spend is actually taking into account the total cost of delivery of that unit to the customer.
So profit on ad spend is your sales minus all your delivery FBA fees and everything else.
Well, yeah, so essentially you're looking at, so if you look at gross profit from your ad sales and you divide that by your ad spend, that'll give you your profit on ad spend, which is called POAS, profit on ad spend. And so this includes all your costs, and it allows you to guide your performance of the campaign. So POAS of 1 means you're break even. It means that for every dollar I spend, I get $1 back. We're breaking even on it. If your POAS is greater than 1, that means you're making, for every dollar you spend, you're making, let's just say 1.25, you're making 25 cents for every dollar that you spend. Anything under 1 means that you're negative. But this is the idea of essentially you're understanding the power of how you can use profit to guide your decision-making abilities. You're not just relying on these distorted ad spend metrics of ACOS, which actually doesn't capture anything, right? It's a vanity metric that essentially is misleading, that doesn't drive any decision-making internally in the organization.
Yeah. And of course, those in some cases, 30% is not going to make money for some people. So that means it's going to be negative there. If they are tracking their POAS, it's going to be negative, right? That means they have to get out of that space.
Yeah, what you really want to do, you want to maximize every dollar of opportunity and figure out how you can use those dollars that you spend to maximize profitability. And considering all the cogs.
You don't bring tacos into the equation at all.
No, we use POAS to drive everything.
Okay.
Even tacos is a revenue metric.
Yeah, but at least it takes into, because when you look at ACOS, you're just looking at the advertising sales, but you have organic sales. So that's why I usually recommend don't look at ACOS so much, look at tacos.
Yeah, but you can also, so you can do the same thing with POAS, right? So POAS in itself is your profit on your ad spend, and you can look at your TPOAS, which is your total profit on ad spend. You can do the same thing.
Yeah.
Again, and
Maybe,
no one's saying that some sellers are okay losing money on their ad spend. They don't see advertising as a means to make more money. But at least now you're directly linking those results to your customer acquisition spend.
yeah. So what I always look at is look at the percentage of your paid traffic. If your paid traffic is a small percentage of your total traffic, then obviously ACOS becomes less and less important. It's your tacos that matters. And then I look at, okay, outside the paid traffic, where is the rest of the traffic coming from? Is it organic and external? How much is external? So that's another decision. So if your external traffic has a higher percentage, then obviously your organic
but
traffic.
Nick, you're running into the same problem, right? So tacos, what is tacos? It's your ad spend divided by your total sales. It's important for sellers to move away from revenue embedded metrics, right? You're essentially still looking at your revenue, and you're doing it on a waxing level. You're saying, hey, here's my ad spend divided by my total sales. And that does not include the cost of delivery or the fees of Amazon, looking at it on a profitability perspective. Yeah, you can take your account, your P&L, and you can say, okay, this percentage of my ad spend, I never want to exceed this. But again, it's a very one-sided way. It doesn't give you the full picture of what's happening.
Yeah. Well, as far as traffic evaluation, I look at the clicks. I don't look at the revenue. So it's analyzing the traffic. So if you're getting 1,000 clicks in a month and you got 200 clicks for paid traffic and 500 clicks on external and then 300 organically, that means one thing. Just purely looking at the traffic, because that tells you the efficiency of your distribution, your how you are promoting. So and at the same time, a lot of new sellers will get out of those 1,000 clicks, they're going to get 800 of them from paid clicks. So now that means something. So it's just looking at two aspects of it.
Yeah, different strokes for different folks. I mean, look, you can have a spreadsheet that looks at POAS and your tacos and your ACOS, and you can make decisions appropriately. At least just having that data available to you. I would just say the other piece of it is the fact that if you look at tacos, it's ad spend divided by your total sales, right? So now you're only adjusting your numerator. You're like, hey, I'm going to adjust my ad spend, but no one adjusts the denominator, which is a big driver of the performance. And so what if you can actually take your ad spend and harmonize it with your total sales, which is price, average selling price times units. And now you're adjusting price and putting that together so you can actually even maximize the performance further.
So I have two metrics for you that you may already have this, that in my platform with tracking these. One is average click value, and the other is just like ACOS, tacos. The other is average paid click value. So that way, bringing your pricing into this, you're going to be able to directly impact those as well, because that's another way to track. So in other words, total sales divide by number of clicks.
Great. So you can do the same thing, though you can do it for profit.
Exactly.
I think that's great. I think looking at it from a profit perspective, if you want to keep sales, right, if you want to keep looking at that metric, fine. But I think looking at it, like, what's your profit per click and using that as a metric, I think that's beautiful.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's, I mean, one thing you said that kind of reminds me this article about algorithm. It's all about algorithmic brand. So this is going back by just over 10 years. There was another article that I actually sent to CEO of a public company, and it was about data-driven decision making. And it was about how CEOs need to be making decisions. And of course, in order to make data-driven decisions, you need to have data in the first place. So, and then it was like a major awakening for him, and about how we're gonna do it. So now you're talking about algorithmic brands. So algorithms, and now with AI taking over everything. So what will be the role for human beings? What do you think?
The role of the human is to oversee, but also I don't believe that, at least right now, we're at a place where algorithms can help brands connect with the customer. And so, like, the brand voice specifically, building the relationship with the customer, we're not there from an AI perspective. Now, do I think it happens over time? Yeah, you'll have AI influencers, sure. You won't even be able to tell the difference between reality and fake reality over time. And that's a big problem for society in general. But I think right now the brand should be focusing on building better connections with the end user.
Yeah. So this what you just said reminds me of the old show Star Trek, right? So there was a bond between Captain Kirk and Mr. Spock, but Mr. Spock lacked emotions, right? But they still had that connection. Did you ever watch that show?
My father used to watch that show. I think I don't watch a whole lot of TV, but I get the connection you're making for sure.
Yeah, I mean, it was always, whenever there was a situation, Mr. Spock would always be very cold, and it was always logical, and but nevertheless, they had that connection, and he cared because he was half human. So that was the reason. So, well, this is a interesting discussion. So, I mean, you bring to the table something that most people don't think about, and they think that the price is there, is written in stone. This is who they are, and your advice is drop the ego, You're not Apple, you're not anybody, and just take the cash, 10-15% extra to your gross profit. That's a big deal, right?
Yeah, I think what I'm trying to say is like pricing is a massive lever and an opportunity you're not pulling. And in today's competitive marketplace, you have to be thinking out of the box, outside of the Amazon matrix. And that's how people make money, right? You never make money by just copying what everyone else is doing. You make money by finding the opportunity in the fringes to maximize the opportunity that's available to you. See things that others don't see, and that is the arbitrage opportunity of life in general. And that's what I'm
Yeah,
suggesting around the pricing dimension that we're talking about.
yeah. Well, that's great. So last time we got to learn a little bit about you, and what I want to know, I mean, you built several businesses and you're building, so you are an entrepreneur. So what is driving you, Chad? Why are you doing all this?
When I first started in the e-commerce ecosystem 20 years ago, uh, I wanted to leave it better than how I found it. And so that's like my mission, is to leave it better than how I found it, whether it's Prosper Show, Skubana, and now Prophecy. If I help others flourish, it's actually quite fulfilling for me.
And why do you want to do that?
Why do I want to help people flourish? It's my mission. I want to elevate people. I like to teach. I like to identify opportunity for myself and for others. It's what drives me. Or else, I mean, I'm not doing this for money.
Well, I mean, this is, I ask every guest who's an entrepreneur, and neither one is driven by money. It's always some
Yeah.
ideological way.
I mean, like I can go on to like childhood trauma, right? And like coming from nothing and sacrifice and wanting to prove myself. I mean, there's a lot of things that are the chemical makeup of me as a human being to make me want to drive to build something. But I definitely one of my family mottos is, I have a young son, he's 4.5. It's Rubin's do hard things. For my whole life, I've been doing hard things. I've been faced with a lot of hardship, and I just thrive going through those hard things and always see my way out of a hard problem and see things differently than most people do.
And what gives you the strength to deal with those hard situations?
I mean, I've been through so many hard situations. I grew up fat, for example, like very, very obese. I was made fun of as a child and always was ostracized. I was always on the outside of things. And that has been a huge impetus for me to want to be accepted, to want to build something that other people enjoy, to help other people flourish. And it provides to me sustenance. Like I really like it when I help another seller make more money or help them achieve what they're trying to achieve. Today there was a seller on LinkedIn that posted about Prophecy. I didn't ask him to. He's a customer, and he posted about Prophecy. His name is Max from Mess Brands, and seeing that is like, it made my day. Right? Like to me, it was like, okay, I'm done for the day. Like unbelievable. It made me feel so great inside. That's the stuff that really provides for me.
Yeah. I always believe that our childhood experiences pretty much define what we want to do in life. And how do you go from having those difficulties growing up as an obese kid to wanting to help others? Is that because nobody helped you, or on the contrary, is that because somebody helped you?
Well, first of all, I certainly have been helped along my journey, right? I had a great childhood therapist. I still am in therapy today. I do a lot of self work and self improvement. So just because you grow up in a specific way and people are mean to you or bully you doesn't necessarily mean that you have to always carry those experiences with you. You carry them, but you carry them maybe a different way. You process them in a different way. So, it's not just, by the way, it's not just me being overweight. It's me growing up with nothing, right? And so I think there's a sense of sacrifice. There's a sense of self-achievement that's involved in this. But yeah, and all of those experiences, we don't have enough time to go through it today, but all of that has really made me a better human. And I certainly have like nothing to prove at this point, right? I already have sold 3 businesses. I'm on to my 4th one now. And to me, I just wanted to challenge myself, and I want to build AI, real AI, not just fake AI, but I want to build something that also helps other sellers. I see this as the future. And I was like, this is really, really cool and a good way to spend my time. And to build something incredible.
So is it helping others, or is it being able to create something that is challenging that you get more satisfaction from?
I think it's both. I don't think they're mutually exclusive. Yeah, I think it's helping people, and I think it's helping them flourish, and I think it's working on hard things simultaneously.
Yeah. Yeah, because being able to build something that people look at and say, wow, this, because I've had guests and they would say, look, I just wanted to create things. So
Yeah.
that's another thing.
I do love
And
creating, right? Like I love building a brand from scratch. Even the word prophecy has a biblical tone to it, right? The actual word prophecy is biblical, where it's predicting with some level of certainty that something's going to happen in the future, right? It's the prophecy, like the Matrix as an example. And at prophecy, we're predicting the optimal price that's going to maximize the objective for you. There's just so much thought around these things, and coming up with the logo and how we are building our machine learning algorithms and being part of the product design and helping finding other great employees to help me build on this and to get everyone excited about what we're building. I love it.
yeah, I mean, you're building a culture in the company. So I mean, that's a big deal. We know the value of culture. That's always a differentiator. Well, that's a great story, and I admire how driven you are and how you are doing things. We've known each other, even though distantly. You cannot discount anything. It's everything you do is always for leaving a mark. So tell us, how can people find Prophecy, share your contact information?
Yeah. So you can always reach out to me personally, chad@prophecy.com. That's PROFASEE.com. You can find me on LinkedIn, Chad Rubin, Twitter, Chad Rubin. Yeah, I'm available. I've been doing this a long time, and I'm here to help.
Yeah, and for anybody listening, reach out. Chad is solid, and as you heard yourself, he likes helping. So I'm sure that you'll get great value. Thank you, Chad. Thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me, Nick.
Before I go, a quick reminder to say goodbye to your cash flow problems and claim your extra $1,500 when you qualify for $25,000 or more in funding. Go to www.runviably.com/legends and start your application today. And this brings us to the end of another episode.
If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to subscribe, rate, and review the episode, and share it with someone you think would benefit from it too.